Hello everyone, welcome to today's video on multiplying and dividing integers. So our key concept for today is when we're multiplying and dividing integers, although this will be true for rational numbers as well. When we have two numbers that have the same sign, they're both positive or they're both negative, then our product, the answer to the multiplication problem, or the quotient, the answer to our division problem, is going to be positive. And when we have different signs, one positive or one negative, that product or quotient is going to be negative. Okay, so we're going to try to look at how we can understand this through our DIRT model as well. Multiplication and division are related. They're inverse operations. My point is that it's not really a coincidence that we're just combining multiplication and division together because multiplication and division are very, very much related, as we're going to try to make clear today. So for our first problem, we're going to be finding the product. Again, the product is the answer to a multiplication problem. And we're going to find it of negative 2 times 3. So I'm going to represent it on the DIRT model to find one way of figuring out what that product is. So we want to represent it here. I have negative 2. Okay, so when I had negative 2, that means that I have a hole in the ground that goes 2 units deep down to negative 2. So right here, this hole is going to represent negative 2. Okay, so that's negative 2. And now it's saying times 3. So what does multiplication mean? Multiplication means repeated addition. So that means I have negative 2 plus negative 2 plus negative 2. So what that means in this case, if I have negative 2 times 3, that means I should have 3 negative 2's. I am multiplying negative 2 3 times. So that's going to mean that instead of having just one hole in the ground that goes to negative 2, I actually have 3 holes in the ground that goes to negative 2. So this picture right here, this represents the product of negative 2 times 3. I'm again taking negative 2 3 times. Okay, so now if I want to combine those together to figure out an answer, this is a nice picture, but it's still not telling me that much. Right, what happens then when I'm multiplying that negative 2 and I have 3 of them? So then I need to combine them together. Okay, so negative 2, and negative 2. When I do that, what do I end up with? Well, now I have a hole in the ground that goes all the way down here to negative 6. We have negative 2 times 3, that's going to be equal to negative 6. Okay, so negative 6 is the product of negative 2 times 3. Let's go back to the key concept that I told you, the rule we stated, that when we were multiplying or dividing rational numbers with different signs, okay, that's what we have here, one positive number and one negative number. The product in this case is going to be negative, right, just like we found. And again, the reason for that is kind of conceptually thinking about it, is we have 3 holes in the ground. So it's not like when you combine or you have 3 holes in the ground, that doesn't somehow combine to positive dirt. No, you're still in the hole, right? And you're just getting more and more in the hole, the more holes you add. The deeper you get, the more holes you add. You might see this on a number line, so I'll just quickly draw that on my vertical number line. Negative 2 is going to be represented an arrow that starts at 0 and goes to negative 2. And then here we have 3 of them. So that means I have one arrow that's going down 2, a second arrow that's going down 2, and a third arrow that's going down 2. And in that case, then we end up at negative 6. All right, great. So that's our first one. We found the product by multiplying negative 2 times 3. Now we want to find the quotient, which means we're dividing. Negative 6 divided by 3. So this is very much related. So now we're told we're starting with a hole in the ground that is negative 6 deep, 6 units deep, and we somehow need to split that up into 3 equal parts. What is going to make up those 3 equal parts? Well, let's see. So again, negative 6, that's going to be a hole in the ground that's 6 units deep, right? That goes down to negative 6. And then what does it mean to divide? Well, division means we need to split up what we have into equal parts. So if we're taking negative 6 and we're dividing by 3, that means I need to take my negative 6, my hole in the ground that's 6 units deep, and split it into 3 equal parts. All right, well, let's see if I can do that. But if I just kind of magically split into, take this piece of it, take this piece of it. Look at that. What happened when I did that? Okay, these are all equal parts. They're all the same, and they all go to -2. That is actually my quotient. When I do -6 divided by 3, I get -2, because when I take that -6 and I split it up into 3 equal parts, thus I divide by 3, each of those 3 parts are holes in the ground that are 2 units deep, right? So they're each -2. This is, of course, very related to what we just found out, right? When we took -2 times 3, we got -6, and that this should work. This is the relationship between multiplication. Thus, -6 divided by 3 is going to equal -2. Okay, awesome. So again, that was a case where we had different signs. We had -6 and +3. When we divided them, we got a negative quotient, which is what our rule states. Okay, so now let's look at kind of the last variation of this. We want to find the quotient -6 divided by -2. We want to find the quotient -6 divided by -2. Now this, it gets a lot harder to think about conceptually, because when we think of division, we're normally saying split it into this number of groups, right? So -6 divided by 3 was splitting -6 into 3 equal groups. So you can't really think about dividing by -2 in the sense of it doesn't make sense to have -2 groups. So you really just have to work the other way and think about it in terms of multiplication. We know that -2 times 3 is equal to -6. We figured that out. So what this is asking us is, like, if you take -6, we want to split it into groups that are -2. How many of those groups are there? You have to kind of switch it around. But we know that. We know then that the answer is 3. Because if you take -6, you divide it by 3, you're going to get -2, right? Because if you're splitting it up. Right, so here we have 3 groups, group 1, 2, and 3, that are each -2. It's hard to think about. A negative divided by a negative doesn't show up much in the real world. But I mean, at the very least, it's pretty easy to remember that when we have the same sign, so these are both negative, then we're going to have a positive quotient or positive product. Just like 6 divided by 2 is +3, -6 divided by -2 is also +3. Mathematically, the reason it works out is it's necessary for the way that multiplication and division are related. If -2 times 3 equals -6, then -6 divided by 2 has to equal 3. Right? That's the relationship between multiplication and division. Okay. All right, we're going to move away from the dirt model and just do a few other quick practice problems. And now we have example 4. Find the product of -12 times -4. So here we're moving a little bit away from the whole model and kind of more going with the rules that are ultimately important you memorize. And some of them are hard to conceptually think about, but they are going to be pretty important for you. So here we're multiplying and dividing rational numbers with the same sign. They're both negative. So when they're both negative, that is when the product or the quotient is positive, when they have the same sign. All right, so that means that -12 times -4 is going to have a positive product. It's going to have a positive product. So to make it clear, how I would do this is I'm going to multiply the absolute values of -12 and -4. They're positive, make them positive. So 12 times 4. Do that, get whatever I get, and then my answer is going to be positive, right? Because a negative times a negative is going to give me a positive number. So let me go ahead and do that. 12 times 4. Okay, so quick review. I'm going to do 4 times 2. 4 times 2 is 8. And then I do 4 times 1. 4 times 1 is 4, which is right. 12 times 4 is equal to 48. Okay. Remember, like I just said, when we have a negative times a negative, we get a positive because they are the same sign. So that means that negative 12 times negative 4 is going to be equal to positive 48. And that is my product. All right, so again, I just multiply the absolute values, and then the answer becomes positive in this case. All right, number 5, find the quotient. We have 60 divided by negative 10. So first thing I would do is let's figure out if we're going to have a positive or a negative quotient. So I have a positive number, and then I'm dividing it by a negative. So when I do that, a positive divided by a negative, well, we have different signs. When multiplying or dividing rational numbers with different signs, one's positive, one's negative, then the product or quotient is going to be negative. Okay, so the quotient here, the answer to my division problem, is going to be negative. Once I've figured that out, I just need to do 60 divided by 10. So 60 divided by 10 is something we should have memorized because it's related to a multiplication fact. So it's saying, if I take 60, I divide it into 10 equal parts. What is the size of the equal parts? Or in other words, I think how a lot of you tend to do it is if we're counting multiples, we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Right? So I have 10 multiplied by 6. I'm going to get 60. Thus, 60 divided by 10 is equal to 6. Okay? Thus, 60 divided by negative 10 is going to be equal to negative 6. So that's going to be the quotient here. 60 divided by negative 10 is negative 6. Okay, so for all these problems, you really just need to figure out what's the sign and then deal with the absolute values of the numbers, the positive version of the numbers as they are. Okay, so if they are the same sign when we are multiplying and dividing only, not with addition and subtraction, super important. Multiplying or dividing only, when we have the same sign, our product or quotient is going to be positive, and we have different signs, and the product or quotient is going to be negative. All right, great job, everyone.